attention doesn't mean persuasion. Attention is the point of entry, and obviously there is no persuasion without attention, but attention alone does not persuade.
Hello, and welcome to The Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Hingle. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Angela Voss, our CEO, and Rob DeMars, our Chief Product Architect.
Hello.
Hello. We're back with our thoughts on some recent marketing news, always trying to root our opinions in data, research, and what drives business results. Today, we're covering an increasingly popular marketing measurement topic that we've mentioned a few times on the show, and it's one that I personally was really excited to dive into, and that is attention metrics. We'll talk about what attention metrics are, why marketers are excited about them, their limitations, and more. But first, as always, let's start with someone else's opinion. I have 3 articles I want to reference to set up our conversation today, so bear with me. The first is a recent one from Ryan Barwick at Marketing Brew, and it's titled, Why Advertisers Are Excited About Attention Metrics. Barwick sets the stage by explaining how, in recent years, advertisers are investing in measurement tools that go beyond your typical viewability and impressions metrics. They're looking to track whether ads actually appeared and whether anyone saw them at all. In digital in particular, brands use attention metrics to measure the quality of the media they are buying by combining eye tracking data with web page layout information. And Barwick believes the increase in attention metrics is likely due to 2 different trends. 1, advertisers are tracking their investments more diligently. And 2, recent privacy changes are making marketing measurement less reliable since there's less consumer data available in general. As far as attention methodologies, they do differ slightly depending on the provider, but most said they use eye tracking data from panels and studies, and then they apply that data to the geometry of a web page to determine where ads appear, their size, and how they fit alongside the page's other content. Attention metrics point out some obvious conclusions like bigger ads tend to get more attention, and too many ads on one page distract consumers. But they also provide other insights, like the fact that leaderboard banner ads, which are those ads at the top of the website, don't get as much attention as advertisers previously thought because we all already know there's going to be an ad there. Or another insight, this specifically from Lumen Research, is what they call gold beneath the fold. This means that as consumers scroll down an article, they start to notice ads more, not less. So higher quality content that users want to continue to read might lead to better attention. So what do advertisers do with these metrics? Well, right now, it's pretty common to apply them post-bid to programmatic buys, to estimate how effective ad placements were on a publisher site, or use them pre-bid to prioritize bidding on high-attention inventory. Now, this article does seem to be in favor of attention metrics, but at the end, Barwick points out that attention metrics aren't a cure-all. If a campaign is optimized solely based on attention, it could start to target slower readers, for example. And attention metrics are still emerging as a measurement tool, so I wanted to make sure we don't focus on a single point of view. I found another article, this one by Lori Sullivan at Media Post, and I thought she did a good job of presenting some of the challenges of attention metrics, as great as they might sound. This article is titled, Hey There, Attention Metrics Stifled by Lack of Resources. Sullivan starts by acknowledging the growing excitement for attention, for all the reasons we just shared, but marketers do disagree on how attention should be used and for what type of media. And this is mostly because marketers lack the resources and understanding to measure it. Then she summarizes attention metrics research from Integral Ad Science and YouGov that analyzed and assessed the perceptions and future outlook of media professionals around measurement and optimization. And here are just a few interesting stats from that research. 83% of media experts think it's important for their company to have an attention strategy. And 78% are prepared to take the next step and bring in an optimization strategy such as pre-bid targeting. When these media experts were asked what attention solutions were important to them, improvements that are more difficult to measure against were less important. And these would be things like offline sales, ad fraud rates, and measuring whether the sound is on while a video is playing. And the author believes this is mostly because of a lack of resources. The researchers also asked what business results were most important for an attention strategy. 84% of respondents cited media performance, 73% cited revenue opportunity, 44% cited online traffic, Another 44% cited interactivity, and 33% cited branding. And finally, these media experts were asked what media formats were the best to measure and optimize towards attention, and this answer varied wildly. 61% said social, 53% mobile app, 43% mobile web, 42% search, 39% digital display, 39% digital video, 33% gaming digital audio, 25% CTV, 24% retail media, 21% native advertising, and 18% said digital out of home.
Jeepers. Okay, so I 100% need to slow down just for a second. That was a lot of data. I would just want to clarify one thing quick, Elena, if you don't mind. How are they defining attention? Because it seems like the two articles differ potentially. The first one seemed a lot more focused on eye tracking, and then the second one was a little less clear to me. Do you mind clarifying that?
Yeah, sure. I think it does depend on the format that you're using to measure attention, but attention in its simplest form is just what's the likelihood that awareness is being paid to an ad placement. So just that's really at its most basic form, that's what it is. But there's more than one like attention metric. So there's a whole bunch of different ones that brands could use. But I think part of the challenge is that it's still emerging. So there's not standardization and it's not totally clear what attention metrics could be.
Got it.
I was also kind of confused going through all that research, Rob, so I feel you. And I know we're referencing a lot of articles today, but I had one more I wanted to touch on because I did think this one was very clear, and it's from Byron Sharp. He has a pretty strong view on attention metrics, and I found this article. It's called Byron Sharp is Right. Chasing Fleeting Attention is a Waste of Money. This was written by Mark Gildeman for The Media Leader. And to summarize Sharp's view, Byron believes that maximizing consumer attention and chasing fleeting exposure will fail to move the needle. He believes attention should be an input to understanding media quality and value, not the target of a campaign. The biggest issue with making attention the target is you can only optimize towards one goal at a time. So if you're optimized to maximize attention, you are failing to optimize towards other brand and business outcomes. Moreover, maximizing attention might lead to ad creative that is very interesting but doesn't drive an impact. Or it could lead to targeting an audience that's already familiar with your brand because we tend to pay more attention to what we're familiar with rather than targeting net new buyers. And Sharp does say that media formats that offer a higher probability of attention tend to perform better, but we've already known that for years. So, Rob, I actually had a question for you. A big part of attention measurement is eye tracking. And I know that we've personally used eye tracking for our own TV commercials for years, right?
Absolutely. Actually, before I tell you about our experience with eye tracking, I want to tell you about another Minnesota company that you may have heard of that does a lot of eye tracking, a company called 3M. They make all kinds of products, Scotch tape and all that good stuff, Post-it notes. One of the major sectors they work in is the creation of stop signs and road signs. And they were spending a lot of time and a lot of money bringing in survey panels who'd wear all the different eye tracking gear, and were using that to test out the different types of designs that they were making for stop signs. And, 3M's pretty innovative. And they said, there's got to be an easier way because this is a lot of time. It's a lot of money. Could we create a algorithm that would mimic the response that we're seeing with all this data we've already been gathering with iRespondents? And that's what they did. And obviously, it really helped them speed up the development of these different types of signs. But 3M is a product development company, so they looked at that technology and said, this is kind of a product in and of itself. Perhaps we should go to marketers and say, hey, we've got this software that can help you with your, say, point of purchase displays or your website designs and, really make sure you're optimizing it. Well, we had gotten in contact with 3M, it was maybe like 15 years ago when this technology was still being developed. They have officially called it 3M VAS, their visual attention software. But we worked with them to go, how do we potentially utilize this technology in video? And we actually found it to be really helpful for us to optimize our CTA banners within advertisements. It actually does two different things. One, it shows you obviously where people are looking, but also the sequence in which they're looking. So where is their eye ending by the time, they finish seeing that scene in the TV commercial? We did since move on from their technology because it was always static images, and we moved to a newer technology that allowed for doing heat mapping on moving pictures. And it's actually really great. Again, it will show you the sequence of the eyes. It also has fog mapping, so it'll show you what people are not seeing. So it's kind of the inverse of heat mapping. But I think overall, we've really liked the objectivity that heat mapping has brought to the creative process. For instance, if you're designing an end card with a box of cereal and a bowl of fruit next to it, you can determine, are people really just looking at the strawberries in the bowl and not the box of cereal? And that just becomes objective data. Then it's not like, hey, I don't know if I like the strawberries in the shot. It's like, hey, if we're selling strawberries, then it's a great ad. But if we're selling cereal, we should probably ixnay the strawberries. So in a way, it's almost like a visual spell check, if you will. So it's definitely a key part of our process.
Well, and I think too, it's invited a lot of healthy debate, even between us internally, our creative team, regarding what's the right visual approach, especially in the spirit of marketers trying to be more emotional in their marketing, trying to do more storytelling. Sometimes that can lead you to a path of, well, let's minimize the CTA, let's push that to the corner, let's put it at the very end. And all of those moves matter. They all potentially have consequences.
Absolutely.
And so that's been a great tool for us to go, well, maybe we went a little bit too far. You start to see that in performance and look back at some of that fog data or eye tracking and go, well, that kind of makes sense then. So it's good data to have.
Absolutely.
I remember when we did a little bit of eye tracking on some of our marketing collateral, and I was always surprised by how much a face can impact things. Like whenever there was a face, it seemed like everybody's eyes, which I suppose makes sense as humans, you go towards somebody's face, but that was always one of the first things that would light up.
Actually, that's a really good point, Elena. That was one of the first things 3M told us when they were introducing the software, that there is a bias towards faces because as babies, we are coded to look at the mother, or the father. And it's like one of the first things you see. So there's a lot of comfort in that.
Makes sense. So we've used eye tracking, like we said, on our TV commercials, but we've also looked into attention more broadly for TV. It's definitely a channel that I've seen targeted for attention metrics. So, Ange, I'd love to know, have we found attention metrics to be helpful for our own TV campaigns?
Yeah, I love the question because the marketing world loves data, but not all data is useful for every channel. Rob's talked about how attention has been good related to eye tracking, but TV is a channel that we as consumers love to give attention to. And so, as Rob mentioned, eye tracking, which is a form of attention analytics, is helpful to ensure we have viewers paying attention to crucial elements of a TV spot. But there are also forms, to your point, Elena, of attention analytics that are marketed by a variety of third-party players that look to track a viewer's tendency to interrupt an ad on television. So for example, they could be changing the channel if they're watching linear. They could be fast forwarding or just stopping a program entirely. All of those behaviors would negatively impact an attention score. And we have experimented with this type of measurement. We do love data. And so experimentation is a great place that we love to play, but have really struggled to find a clear correlation between the performance that we see out of a creative, for example, a cost per visit, a cost per action, a CAC, and the attention score it was receiving. And I think that's what Byron is speaking to in that third article that you mentioned. And I think there are channels that are different than television, have different aspects, different risks, like digital, that maybe need a viewability focus for other reasons that just aren't as relevant for television, things like ad fraud and stuff like that.
I'm excited to hear that we have a different point of view, because sometimes it feels like attention metrics just get total positivity, and there's already hundreds and hundreds of metrics that marketers have to pay attention to. So probably a good idea to scrutinize. So I wanted to move on to the second article we covered today. We talked a little bit more about some of the downsides or challenges with attention metrics, and that article was really focused on a lack of research. But Ange, could you outline some of the other challenges that we've heard with attention metrics, or how they might go beyond just that lack of research?
Yeah, I mean, accuracy is a big one. Attention is a fairly complex topic that is multifaceted. It involves cognitive processing, and simple just measuring where our eyes are directed doesn't really fully capture whether or not the content is mentally processed and retained. Additionally, the reliability of the insights can be a concern. Factors like behavior, the context of where the ad falls in a pod, what programming that ad might fall into, various device types, and the representativeness of the data can all greatly impact the insight. And then as you go to compare mediums, there is that lack of industry-wide standards and even varying definitions of what attention really means. That was the first question you asked, Rob, right? What are we even talking about? So, and then all of this data, of course, is not free and is not inexpensive either. So businesses need to, weigh the cost of implementing these tools against the potential return that they might be seeing. I do think that part of the growth of attention metrics is the non-performance marketing world trying to get a bit more analytical on what they're doing. I think that's part of the growth, is that they're trying to add measurement, which I don't fault them for. If we're just putting messages out there and not having a real clear indication of whether or not it's effective, that's a hard spot to be in these days, especially in the US. We're so, short-term focused. So I think that's part of where the growth has come from.
One of my personal favorite challenges with attention metrics is the privacy concerns, because one reason why attention metrics became a thing was because it's getting harder to measure due to privacy concerns. So now we're just going to measure like your eyeballs. So,
right.
And no one's going to have a problem with that in a couple of years. But before we wrap up, I wanted to get really practical. And how should marketers think about attention metrics in general as an advertising practice today?
I don't love my answer. I'll be transparent, and it's everyone's favorite. It depends. I would say the one piece of advice I would give to all marketers and businesses is don't just have attention metrics to have it. Be specific about what you're trying to answer, because I think the specificity of your intent is going to point you in a direction that will be most useful. But in all cases, attention metrics should be used in conjunction with other performance indicators, such as click-through rates or conversion rates or a cost per action. They should be thought of as a part of a holistic strategy. I think they can offer depth to the understanding of ad effectiveness, but are not standalone measures. We all want attention on our marketing, but it's ultimately the impact on sales and brand awareness and, customer engagement that ultimately matters.
I've got a simplistic answer, and that is to remember that attention doesn't mean persuasion. Attention is the point of entry, and obviously there is no persuasion without attention, but attention alone does not persuade. If you think of it like attention being a doorway and persuasion being the room behind the door, and just because someone peeks through the door, you've gotten their attention, doesn't mean they were going to want to hang out in that room and stay in the room. So it's just, it's the first step in a bigger job.
That's a great point. Well, to summarize for today, I think that attention metrics, they're definitely exciting, still emerging as a measurement tool. And just like a lot of marketing concepts and tools, success with it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on your format. And come on, it can't be that simple and easy because it's marketing. So it can't be straightforward. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Ayana Claphockey for producing the show and Michael Hingle for editing. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you find our show valuable, please leave us a rating and review. Now go forth and build great marketing.
So, Ange, are you dropping the kids off at Hogsworth later?
Stop it. You like this?
What's Hogsworth?
Isn't that
he feels
school?
Hogsworth? You mean Hogwarts?
Well, Hogwarts, yes.
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
My Harry Potter joke didn't go.